Last week, we got every movie trailer and their mother came out for some reason from absolutely every studio you could practically imagine on the animated front, and somehow, Paramount just didn't quite get the bill. So now, on a Monday at 1 o'clock in the afternoon in the UK, which is great for British time zones, but 9 AM in the US for some reason, finally we get the official second trailer for Sonic the Hedgehog 3, and this is a movie franchise that I think's actually probably one of my favorites of the last decade, oddly enough. I think when it comes to video game movies, I'm coming to learn that I just love outright, direct, faithful adaptations, you know? The story can be pretty safe and boring in a lot of ways, if at the very least there's loads of references and faithful representation, which the Sonic franchise has gotten better and better at doing. You may notice even in this trailer here how minimal the real normal human characters prevalence is in this trailer. They've learned their market, and boy have they gotten better since the days of Sonic's old eyes. And I have been absolutely enthralled with the concept of this story. I mean, my first Sonic game was literally Sonic Adventure 2, and I still think it is the greatest story premise of them all. So to see some actual references to that game explored in all sorts of directions that, as well, we see for the first time in this trailer, mwah! Absolutely brilliant. There's even some of the niche ones that feels like a reference to me that I'm not sure is intentional, but certainly feels like it. Like Eggman coming out of the sewers in that one alleyway reminds me of Knuckles coming out of the sewers in an alleyway. What are the odds that's actually what they're going for? That's a very deep cut if it is. And while the usual tone of my opinion when it comes to the early exposures of some animated movie is a little bit of ambivalence, a little bit of concern, this I have practically no concerns with. It may be because it's the third movie in a franchise that's gotten progressively better, and they're doing all the beats I would want them to hit. It is Shadow the Hedgehog after all. But honestly, against the likes of Wallace and Gromit and The Bad Guys 2 recently, I think this could be the movie to top the both of them in my opinion. The way they've managed to expand the idea that Sonic Adventure 2 was doubling the heroes with Sonic and Shadow, and now they've done the same doubling the villains with Ivo and his grandfather. Kind of thing they did in the games, but it's nice to see an expanded role there. And of course, the fan base are just frothing at the mouth for certain scenes to take place, and it looks like we're getting it. Beyond just the fact that Maria dies, it looks like there will be a nice extension of that storyline as we see Shadow and Maria in a field of flowers, just to make that a little bit more heart-wrenching along the way. But further to that, yes, we do in fact see a scene of Eggman pissing on the moon. They knew we wanted it. They knew we were going to reference it. They can't avoid it, and let's just not bother the actors or the voice actors about it. But still, I mean, that's going to be revolutionary to see in proper high-quality CGI. And I mean, the big evil planet gun is a pretty good threat. It's a classic, but it's a good threat. I love it. It's an opportunity for Jim Carrey to do his Jim Carrey thing. I don't entirely get it, like the whole Santa Claus sequence is alright, interesting. And some of the jokes, admittedly, I haven't liked in this trailer, specifically Konnichiwa? Like, you know what I mean? It's just a classic bore. I hate it. I am surprised they got away with a Pokemon reference so overtly. Like, I mean, I guess Pokemon's technically more the Pokemon company than it is Nintendo, but yeah, they really skirted around it. Or hey, you never know, maybe it's a lean up that if that's allowed, then they might get along to some crossover event in the future. I've always talked about a cinematic universe with these live-action hybrids before. A Smash Brothers movie maybe is getting closer than we realize. Who knows? But honestly, I could just gush about every frame and shot in this movie that references something that I've seen. I adore how they've managed to reinterpret the Chow Garden into some sort of mascot party, and to be honest, I'm still stunned that Sega haven't made more Chow Garden gaming content. They are literally sleeping on endless money and productivity there, but hey, I haven't actually got the biggest faith in Sonic Team as a game developer, but hey, that's another discussion for another day. But even just beyond any of the faithful video game adaptations, I think what is a real nice success story for this movie is the fact that there is such genuine good CGI animation now. And there's some actual directorial flourishes in there, like the scene of Tails on a little jetpack speed boosting in a way that makes the lens go into like a more wide-angle fisheye perspective. I think that is so nice to visually see, and it just fits the aesthetic of the movie as a whole really, really well. Hey there, thank you for making it halfway through this video. Come subscribe if you haven't already to keep up with animated movie trailers. And let's get back to the second half of the third Sonic movie. Trailer. I think there's some real opportunity for some big sort of high stakes bits with everyone turning, looking at the sky for the Eggman pissing on the moon announcement, I guess. And I just think it can be really stellar throughout. Keanu Reeves' voice coming out of Shadow the Hedgehog only makes all the more sense as it continues. Some people are mentioning that they think they can see the reflection of the 7 Chaos Emeralds inside of Sonic the Hedgehog's eyes, which is an interesting one to see. And honestly, after seeing how much the second movie impressed me against the very bland and safe approach of the first movie, and now seeing how much hype this third movie is bringing in, I just can't really see it falling apart. Now, it is made by Paramount, and that does come with a couple of red flags for me. One of the things I particularly hate the most about the Sonic movie franchise is the goddamn product placement. It stays in my head. I mean, I still remember Zoopla and Olive Garden and Doritos, but it's very annoying and takes away from the magic a little bit for me. You're already controlling a massively popular video game IP and turning it into a cinematic experience. Why do you need to take more money from products just to cram it in and advertise it to children? Not a big fan of that. Plus, the tone of the recent Knuckles series was a little bit naff in a lot of places, but hopefully when it's reined in for the main cinematic movie script, it comes off a lot better. The second movie, at the very least, was great times. And this third one has references and faithful adaptations to boot, as well as some really interesting dynamic set pieces. Like one of the Shadow fights looks like it takes place in like the sort of volcanic remnants of wherever the laser beam beamed. Or, you know, just a ship exploding and on the wreckage. It's probably that makes more sense. The way they've adapted this into a sort of global story going to both Japan, America, and England is interesting, and I guess makes sense considering Sonic Adventure 2 has multiple different cultures represented in looking up at the global threat of this moon shooter. And I like to hope that we only have like the first half of the movie's storyline spoiled here. I kind of thought the big black hole was towards the end of the movie, but it seems like that's the very beginning, before getting the humans involved a little bit for the plotline. Whether it is that Eggman flips sides, or Shadow flips sides, or whoever the real big bad is, I hope there is a nice bump up for the story in that way. But overall, yeah, this is one of the movies I am most looking forward to at the end of the year. Whilst I think there are other fantastic movies that have come out this year, like The Wild Robot and Transformers 1, this is one of those movies that is near and dear to my heart, or it seems like it if hype is to be believed. Even if it might not actually be the best in quality, it certainly has my soul. So far, practically everything it has written into it is absolutely doing it right, and I'm ever curious to see where they go further from here, because I kind of see this as the end all at this point. Sure, there's always room to incorporate other characters like Amy Rose, but unless we do a big explore into another direction from this point, I'm curious to see what they would do after this point, other than adapting some of the many gimmicky games like turning into a werewolf suddenly, or having alien wisps about. Still, if they've actually managed to adapt Shadow having a motorcycle and having an actual gun, then I guess they can do absolutely anything with the right amount of time put into it. Either way, this is just a Christmas present I am waiting to open. I am surprisingly on board with this movie, and nothing I've seen so far devastates me. It's the highest praise I can give when it comes to a somewhat animated movie trailer, and considering we covered like 7 last week with all sorts of concerns, this is a real diamond in the rough. 1 week later, on a Monday, first thing in the morning. Man, Paramount, Sega, and Sonic team are clearly improvising it and winging their marketing. Anyway, that's enough of my first impressions on what is probably one of the last trailers we're going to cover. We'll of course do a review the day it comes out. I've got plans to do it in my hometown when I visit for Christmas. But for now, my name's been Daz. Thank you very much for reaching the end of this video. Do tell me your thoughts on this trailer or any details you noticed in the background that I didn't mention. And on that note, I shall see you in a little bit.